Hey everybody, let's talk about Aretha Franklin and John McCain. Both of them died recently, and this past weekend, both of them had their funeral celebrations. And these celebrations were heavy in the news cycle for both of these people. I think this is really interesting because I think that on some intrinsic subconscious level, this large celebration of their deaths is also celebrating what they represent mythologically, which is love and war. And I think this carries on the first myth from the beginning of time, which has been regurgitated in so many different ways through time, because it is essential truth, the dancing of love and war and the existence of love and war, or sex and violence, if you prefer. These are two of the most intrinsic truths to life itself. And to see them each displayed so heavily and publicly, I guess, and mainstream in the news and just saturating everything this past weekend, I thought it was really interesting because it's not often that we get something like that we can decipher. And I'm still deciphering it. I don't know what it all means. It could just be a complete coincidence. But I think that on some higher level, even if it is just like collective conscious, it's all happening this weekend as part of our human story to drive our emotions into whatever our final places that we're going when you look outside of time. Because as I probably discussed, we'll say many times again, time doesn't exist. You live and you die as far as our perception allows us to see. You live and you die in this dimension. But time being infinite means that everything is going on all the time. So in this linear reality, this thing has happened at our time, where both love and war are being so, again, publicly, mainstreamly honored and reflected. And so just let me contrast here. They died at separate times. Aretha Franklin died first. But let's see, I got this information up here. So she died August 16th. John McCain died August 25th, so they were like nine days apart there. Of course, she was in her... Let's look at just the complete opposites here, first of all. Black woman, white man. Creation, destruction. That's a big one. And I know I'm not trying to I know destruction has a very negative connotation to it, but look at intrinsically what this is. She was a musical artist, but Aretha Franklin is a musical artist. She created. Her life was built around creating. John McCain, he was a soldier. He was in the Navy. He was captured, taken hostage, and had was tortured and had a lot of really awful stuff happen to him. But that's all a part of war, which is, again, destruction. For the sake, of course, of recreation, you cannot. I guess. I mean, I'm not gonna get into politics and whether war is right and war is wrong. But at the base level, let's get past right and wrong and just realize that war is destruction. Destruction leads to creation. You tear things down so you can build things up. But the act of war is destruction. It is destructive. So one funeral was celebrating a purveyor of creation. The other funeral was celebrating a purveyor of destruction. Again, I'm not saying John McCain just wrecked everything he touched or whatever, but it's all about what they represent. So war and love being represented in that very public way. But the public point of it is another thing to look at, because John McCain's funeral was not actually that public. It was covered very publicly, and people came out for his motorcade. But his funeral was actually very private, and there was a small amount of people there, and it's a very quiet ceremony. He's buried, I think, on a naval base somewhere in Annapolis, Maryland. Yes, Maryland, Annapolis, Maryland, and a Naval Academy. I have it here. I don't even know why I'm pretending to be like, whoa, where was it? I have it right here, typed on the screen right above where I'm recording this from. Anyway, but yeah, a quiet ceremony for a military man. Of course, his motorcade, people came out and were watching it on the streets. And, war, again, we look at it, a lot of people may say war is loud because there's guns and bombs and woo, but war is quiet in the end. In the end, when all is said and done, war is quiet. When all the tearing down and the destruction is done, and when people come back from the war, there's not a lot of veterans that I've met that are all like, yeah, dude, party, whatever. Like, they a lot of them like would rather not talk about what's going on over there, and it's a very quiet, somber thing. War is a quiet, somber thing. Of course, the violence itself that happens in war, the destruction, of course, that happens in war is, that's I don't know if I'd call that somber. That is violence, that is destruction, but that's also a blink. And the majority of the time, after the fact, leading up to the fact, like war, I would say, not that I've ever been, but it makes sense to have a somber funeral for a person who represents war. On a larger narrative, yes, John McCain represented other things to other people, but and so did Aretha Franklin. But that's what we're getting at here. Aretha Franklin, her funeral, oppositely, was very jovial and loud and jubilant, and it was 7 hours long, and there were a ton of people there. Smokey Robinson was there and performed. Jennifer Hudson. Stevie Wonder performed at her funeral. All sorts of people performed at her funeral. Also, they changed her outfits 4 times. They changed Aretha Franklin's clothing 4 times on her dead body shell. So, holy crap. Now, if that's not love, then what is? Or I'm sure someone got paid to do that. I don't know, but I can't imagine, like, she died on the 16th. I can't imagine 10, 15 days later, changing clothes on a corpse that's been dead that long. And I guess they put the stuff in to preserve it, to keep the body bendy, so rigor mortis makes it easy. I don't know. I'm sure the after effect was beautiful and great, and it's kind of awesome in a way. But kind of creepy to think about the process of how many times you change a dead person's clothes. Either way, it was definitely a wedding fit for the queen. They had pink Cadillacs all up and down the road honoring her. The big difference in the motorcade, just a huge fleet, going out and boom, here's the thing. And versus John McCain's, private rolling through town with the people waving the flags on the side of the street. But yeah, definitely she was a creator, and I think his creation is generally looked at as a positive thing. Nobody would argue against that. But creation is love. Destruction is war. And these things are intimately linked, especially when you look at, the Greek mythology. It was, Aphrodite was the goddess of love. So I think in this case, we have Aretha Franklin, she is that Aphrodite for the weekend. John McCain, if he represents war, well, the god of war is Ares, brother to Athena, but they represent different aspects of war. Ares represented actual destruction, whereas Athena represented tactical and more military, decisive kind of aspects of war, the strategy of war. So in the way Greek mythology goes is that Aphrodite was originally hooked up with Ares. They were lovers. Aphrodite and Ares love and war, they were coupled together. But then this guy named Hephaestus stopped in, and I hope I'm saying that right. I don't know, but Hephaestus is the god of fire and craftsmanship. So basically the god of technology, and he stepped in and basically stole Aphrodite from Ares and married her, locked her down. So then what happens is Aphrodite cheats on Hephaestus by going back to Ares. And then Hephaestus and Aphrodite get a divorce. And she's back again with war. So, strangely enough, Hephaestus goes on to attempt to rape Athena, the sister of Ares, apparently just because he really was attracted to her, not as some sort of revenge rape because her brother stole his girl back or whatever. But also, Hephaestus was the guy who created Pandora's box and the necklace of Harmonia, which, like, apparently the necklace, it's a necklace you wear, and if you wear the necklace, then you have, like, bad luck, and your family has bad luck for, like, generations to come, and all this, like, tragedy and stuff. So, kind of interesting, the god of technology created Pandora's box and created all these, like, horrible things, and that they have this love-hate relationship with love and war itself, and that love and war have that relationship, this love and hate relationship. So I feel like we are kind of seeing that Aphrodite and Ares being celebrated in the celebration of the figures of Aretha Franklin and John McCain. And it's like, the coupling of those two. A funeral, of course, celebrates the loss of something, that something is leaving. But since nothing's really gone, we only perceive it as being gone. Like, if we don't look at it like a funeral and, we're seeing them out, just look at it as a celebration. And again, this weekend was a huge celebration of love and war. And, also, another just side point, the Queen of Soul died on the same day as the King of Rock, same day Elvis Presley died. So that's August 16th. That's another just weird coincidence with all this that just makes it feel like it's on some larger subconscious level than just things going on in the world. When you look at the idea of us, like, creating our own reality, and if everybody is creating their own reality, but people want the same things, then we will project these things we want together into the world. So this, again, to me, their deaths, both at these celebrations of their death, both at the same time, really feels like a projection of the mythology of humankind, just being sent out to the stars and written down in our stone tablets for all time. But I guess in modern times, it's digitized and put on the internet and put into sound bites and audio files. But it's all still artifacts. It's still mythology, and it's still going on. So I just want to point out all the things attached to it, the differences between their funerals, how their funerals suit them, and this just the huge dichotomy between what they each represented and brought to the world and just were as people. I think there's something special going on here, that we're being shown something from the gods or the collective soul or whatever it is. But I don't know. Maybe we're subconsciously interpreting it. I obviously cannot consciously interpret it, at least right here and now. Hindsight could be 2020. But again, death is death is death, and they're dead. So I don't know what it all means. But I'm glad that it happened together. I'm glad they had their funerals the same weekend, and that we can compare and contrast these things and can be reminded of these stories that have been told for all time. And that I think there really is something to the notion that the word becomes form, that the word comes first. Biblically, that's a thing if you're a Bible person, but also the notion of thoughts being things, that the fact that we have to think it before we can create it. And then when we think it, we do create it. You can even take it down to the base of necessity as the mother of invention. You need something, so you come up with it. And you have to have the thought of it before it exists. So, a lot of these thoughts we've had for so long, and that's when they become mythology. And when these things happen, that's what we're doing, is celebrating that mythology. And I think that's really and truly what we, as a large mass of people, did this weekend, knowingly or not. We celebrated the mythology of Aphrodite and Ares, and we paid honor, or at least attention, which essentially is honor. If things are, if things are put on a scale of, let's not look at good or bad, they just are what they are. But yeah, we're so basically subconsciously or intentionally, their deaths this weekend, America as a whole, the world, I guess, in some spots, we have spent this weekend retelling the story of, or retelling the concept of Aphrodite and Ares through their current forms of, in this moment, in this scenario, of Aretha Franklin and John McCain. Not lovers, obviously. Probably have never met, couldn't be more different. But love and war couldn't be different. And again, it's not supposed to be literal. But if you want to, look at the funeral as a marriage. It's them, the celebration, their names being spoken, them being recalled and remembered at the same time on the same weekend. Feels like mythology to me. And we're just continuing it on as we will for all time and have for all time. So it's cool. I don't know what else to say about it. It's cool.